Greetings. Welcome to my video on red teaming versus penetration testing. My name is Elizabeth Carlson-Hom, and I am a student at Metropolitan State University. This video is part of the CYBR 332 Computer Security course led by Dr. Fasal Kaleem. A quick disclaimer, this video is strictly for educational purposes only, and I am not liable for any damages that may be caused by using this information. The best way for an organization to test its infrastructure security is to conduct an attack against yourself. When deciding which method to use, you will want to consider what the objectives and desired outcomes should be. An organization should also be cognizant of any regulatory compliance that is applied to their industry. Security testing should include an overall system security plan. I will detail the differences between red teaming and penetration testing, what they do, how they are similar and different, and what the best applications would be for each of them. Knowing the differences between the two can make sure you are using the correct one. What is the difference between red teaming and penetration testing, though? Let's start by defining what each one of them is. Penetration testing is one of the top steps an organization can take in order to improve their cybersecurity stance and reduce their attack vector. Penetration testing is the review of the system to learn as much as possible about the organization, its systems, and networks. Penetration testing is a type of security assessment where a tester will use automated tools as well as manual interventions to test for and identify security vulnerabilities within your organization. A good penetration test uses multiple pen testing methodologies to understand both the strengths and weaknesses of the infrastructure. The goal is to exploit vulnerabilities to gain access to sensitive data or systems. The NIST 800-53 Revision 4 goes over the security and privacy controls for federal information systems, which include regulations around penetration testing best practices. A NIST 800-53 penetration test is a security assessment that identifies vulnerabilities in an information systems and evaluates the likelihood of the system being breached. How does pen testing work and what is involved? Penetration testing can vary from organization to organization. However, it usually follows 4 similar steps. The first step is planning and reconnaissance, also known as passive recon. Step 2 is gathering information, also known as active recon. Step 4 is discovering vulnerabilities and exploiting them. And step 4 is documentation and reporting. The first step a skilled penetration tester will perform is gathering information about its intended target without actually interacting with the target itself. This means the information is found without reaching out to the target directly. Most public resources are used to gather this type of information. This is a way of collecting low-hanging fruit or free info that is information that can prove to be extremely valuable. One example of passive recon is to go to the Whois website and conduct an IP search and domain name owner lookup. I am going to use the Minnesota Vikings as my example. If I navigate to Whois.com and type in Whois.com into my web browser, I can find out who the registered owner is and where this is being hosted. In the case of the Minnesota Vikings website, it's being hosted out of New York, as you can see right here. So one could guess that it's being hosted by a company who works with all NFL teams, as I know the NFL has New York City as its headquarters. This could potentially tell me that more team targets than just the Vikings might be available with this service provider. The domain provider is Mark Monitor Domain Management, and the name servers are udns1.ultradns and udns2. So if I look at NFL.com on Whois, I also see the same service provider. Using search engines such as Google and Microsoft Bing can also provide information on hidden pages, the technology used, metadata, etc. Another good use of passive recon is identifying top executives on social media sites such as LinkedIn. Yet another popular passive recon method is to guess the system host name using NSLOOKUP. This is free information provided to me just for looking. Step 2 in the process is to gather information involving identifying vulnerabilities through active recon. This involves interacting with the target to extract information. Most pen testers use automated tools as well as manual interventions to gather information as part of active recon. Using multiple tools as part of active recon will identify a broad range of vulnerabilities compared to using a smaller subset of tools. The first active recon tool I would like to use is a port scanner called Nmap. Of course, you want to ensure that proper legal permissions have been granted to the pen tester to perform these activities. Port scanning is used to identify open ports on a system that could potentially be compromised. Assume the port scanner shows port 80 is open, which is related to unencrypted web traffic. An attacker could attempt attacks on a system through that port. Nmap is commonly used in both Linux and Windows environments. To show a basic example of how Nmap works in a Windows environment, I'm going to run a port scan against Vikings.com. This is done by installing Nmap, opening up a command prompt, and typing in Nmap and the domain of the target. In my case, I'm going back to the domain name of Vikings.com. As you can see, my Nmap report shows that the host is up. It also displays ports 80 and 443 in an open state for web communications over unencrypted HTTP and secure traffic over HTTPS, shown right here. It's also resolving the domain name to its IP address of 151.101.129.153. Now, given the high profile of my example domain name, I'm assuming its security posture is fairly secure, so it makes a great example. However, lower profile targets can generate a wealth of information through port scanning. Nmap has many scripts and commands that are available to download on nmap.org to scan for more detailed information, such as targeting specific ports. If I want to display a certain port, for instance, SSH, I could enter nmap-p22 for port 22, and then the IP address, which I did down here. See, it shows that port 22 over TCP, which is the port used for SSH, is in a filtered state down here. Nmap can also get granular as to send logs of its output to your computer. I can assume based on this response that SSH requests to port 22 from unknown users are getting filtered out by Vikings.com. If I were in a true pen testing environment, I would be using Kali Linux as my operating system, not Windows. Many of the tools that are part of the basic Kali install are commonly used for pen testing. Ping sweeps can also provide valuable network info if echo replies are enabled on your target. Another popular tool is Metasploit. I'm going to give an example of how Metasploit works with the screenshots. It's a versatile open source toolkit that assesses security vulnerabilities in systems. Metasploit can launch multiple attacks against the source to test its defenses against certain vulnerabilities. It has modules that can allow you to select payloads and attack vectors to launch an attack. Metasploit is most popular in the Linux environment, but again also has a Windows installation. Other popular tools focus on pen testing web applications, such as Burp Suite. Burp Suite can look for issues such as SQL injection and look for web proxies that operate a man in the middle between the browser and the target application. Burp Suite also has elevated tools such as the DOM Invader for DOM cross-site scripting attacks. You can also look at unsafe APIs that are in the operating environment. As you can see, I'm running my web traffic through Burp Suite to get data on my HTTP traffic. You can see the GET request that I sent to Vikings.com shows in the browser and network traffic. And finally, two of the most robust active recon tools are OpenVAS and Nessus. Tenable Nessus is one of the most popular and most recognizable vulnerability scanners. Nessus and its database of Tenable plugins are easy to use. However, its licensing is very, very expensive. For larger organizations, it can provide integrated environment scans in conjunction with other security tools such as CrowdStrike and Umbrella. Nessus Tenable is known for its Tenable plugins, which describe the vulnerability, the remediation actions you must take, and how to test for its presence using algorithms. Step 3 in penetration testing after using Active Recon is to exploit the vulnerabilities using the tools I went over previously. Robust testing of all aspects of the network is vital. Some tools like Metasploit can launch payloads directly to test different exploits against the organization's infrastructure. Tools such as Wireshark can analyze network traffic and supports hundreds of protocols. It also offers real-time dynamic analysis of the network traffic for a treasure of information. There are many different types of penetration testing tools. Network, web application, database, and open source testing tools are in every pen tester's toolkit. Each provide information about a different part of the organization's infrastructure. Many of those tools are referred to as a Swiss Army knife tool, known for their flexibility with the amount of different kinds of pen testing they can do. The last step of pen testing is to document your findings. The report will identify security vulnerabilities and identify the steps they took to exploit it. This will assist the organization in identifying vulnerabilities and fixing them. It also allows the organization to assess the effectiveness of its current security controls. Did the security controls work, or were there weaknesses? A pen testing report helps the organization identify exactly where in the infrastructure the vulnerability is coming from. Identifying system weaknesses and assessing the overall security at regular intervals is critical to the cybersecurity of an organization. The report will also include the scope of job, findings, and recommendations. It will also include an executive summary that gives a high-level overview for executives. So after an in-depth discussion of penetration testing, what is red teaming? Well, the goal of pen testing is to find as many vulnerabilities to test as possible. The goal of red teaming can be more granular. There may be a specific goal, often a system they wish to test. They are usually more complex and more expensive than pen testing. Therefore, the red team assessments typically require a higher level of skill and expertise. Pen testing is also usually has a testing time frame, whereas red team testing not so much. Red teaming usually occurs more stealthily and over a more extended time frame. It may also have several stages. Red teaming tests are typically not communicated to the IT staff, therefore they have no warning it's going to happen. Red teaming tests the element of human behavior as well as the security posture of the organization. Red teaming simulates a real-life attack more so than basic penetration testing attempting to avoid being detected. It's been said that red teaming tests the entire security culture as well as the systems because only the testers know ahead of time what is occurring. The tactics used in red teaming are a combination of real-world attacks, intelligence gathering, vulnerability identification, and data exfiltration. Red teaming is known for its holistic approach. It assesses the entire security process and the organization's defensive posture. The attacker is on the offensive with adversarial thinking process. This can allow them to look at things from multiple perspectives that pen testing may not allow. Red teaming is a deeper defense in-depth approach to securing data on your network. A red team assessment does not look for multiple vulnerabilities, but for the vulnerabilities that will achieve their goals. The red team report will also include a narrative of the overall attack plan used against an organization. Red teaming will follow the same steps as pen testing with a different process. Some of the common red team tactics include social engineering, network service exploitation, physical facility access, and application layer exploitation. The report given by the red team should look similar to the report provided by the pen testers. Here's an example of a red team template with an executive summary, testing goals, scope, steps performed, observations, and recommendations. And as stated, this is just a template. Nothing is filled out, but it also shows the steps that must be used in order to fill out a red team report. How to decide which one is right for you? Which are the best situations to use each one? Penetration testing and red teaming aren't a one or other solution. It's possible to use them in conjunction with each other as they have separate goals. Red teaming is a more advanced type of penetration testing and should possibly be used in a well-defined network environment. If you don't have a mature network, your organization is not prepared yet for red teaming. It's also good to use red teaming for an organization that has a larger attack vector. For a less defined network environment, it would make sense to start with pen testing to find larger scope macro level vulnerabilities, whereas red teaming is more narrow in scope. Red teaming should be used in an environment that requires more time to test due to the complexity of the environment. If cost is an issue, it would make sense for an organization to look at regular pen testing at set intervals and red team testing to test certain infrastructure elements at a less frequent interval. Another consideration in type of testing would be the federal regulations that an organization must follow. ISO 27001 compliance framework states that a company must protect and securely manage their customers' data. To be in compliance, an organization is required to identify risks and vulnerabilities within information systems by undergoing penetration testing. Red team testing can also provide a supporting role in regulatory compliance. Such targeted testing can satisfy certain more specific regulations as the General Data Protection Regulation, also known as GDPR, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, also known as HIPAA, and Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards, also known as PCI DSS, require organizations to safeguard information against potential threats. Penetration testing and red teaming are both highly effective tools when executed effectively by highly trained testers. Both types of tests will improve the security posture of an organization going forward. That is all I had for my presentation. Thanks for watching and have a good day.